Hello YouTube, this is my fifth video in my module on statistical graphs. In this video we're going to focus on what we call a Pareto chart. Okay, and so a Pareto chart is a really common statistical graph that we make. First thing I want to mention right here is that a Pareto chart is used to represent a frequency distribution for a categorical variable. Okay, so when we talk about categorical variable, we're talking about a variable that is skinny classes. It could be numerical, it could be, but typically it's qualitative data. So each class kind of represents its own things. Like if we were to look at this data over here, we say homicide, rape, robbery, assault. If I was collecting data on crime, we say homicide represents its own category, and so does rape, so does robbery, so does assault. If we were to have something that was numerical and also categorical, it'd be something like say this here, and our classes on the left would be like 17, for example, 18, 19, 20. That would also be considered categorical because each class is so skinny it constitutes its own category. Okay, but in this instance we could say for the most part Pareto charts are used for qualitative data types. Okay, so things that are non-numerical, such as these categories right here. The other thing to mention about Pareto charts is this: the frequencies are displayed by the heights of vertical bars, so we're using bars here, and they are arranged in order from highest to lowest. So a Pareto chart must always be in this reverse J shape. We'll talk about what we mean by that here in a second. But a couple things. First of all, to make the graphs, we want to make it such that the different classes are in descending order, and we want to use categorical data only for these types of graphs. So number one here, it says arrange the data from largest to smallest according to frequency. Well, the first thing we need to do is come up here and say, well, number one was this 164 here, number two was this 34 here, 3, and then 4. We're going to arrange them in this fashion. So our x and y axes are up next. Our x-axis variable in this case is going to be the type of crime. We always want to label this a type of crime. Okay, and then we also up here we want to label the frequency, and then last but not least we say crime stats. You always want to give your graph a name here, so crime stats for an area. So given a title, label your axes. Let's go ahead and say, well, our top number here is 164. When we set up the scale on the y-axis at least, we're going to have to go up to at least 164. So perhaps we go up like 25, 50, 100. So we say 100. Go by 25. It's 25, 50, 75. Okay, we say like 200, maybe be right here. And then our categories down here on this axis. Interesting thing is, and I can't necessarily, let's see if I can turn my pen sideways. This ought to be interesting. Okay, so here we go. We could say this right here would be our first category, which is assault. So we say assault. And maybe that won't work. I was trying to write it sideways. You can write it sideways. You can also write it diagonally. So I've seen people do this before. We say assault. I can at least do that. Assault. The next highest frequency was for rape. We say rape. Next one is robbery. Robbery. And then our last category, at least our least frequent, was homicide. We say homicide for a given area. Okay, so this being said, like we mentioned before, we're just going to make vertical bars for each of these categories. You could do it right on top of the category itself. So for assault, for example, we said at 164 assaults. So here's 150, 164 would probably be somewhere in here. Next highest was rape. Rape had 34, so we say 25, 50, 34, somewhere in here. 34. We have 29, so it'll probably be about right here. And the last one was a height of 13, so 13 would be in here. And then just like in previous graphs with bars, you can always put the numbers in here. We say 164. If you felt like filling in your data, it's always a good thing. People walk up to your graph and they can see the actual data if they would like to as well. The important thing to note here is we have this reverse J, so we say reverse J shaped, and this is always true for Pareto charts. They're going to have a reverse J shape on their graphs, but they go from highest frequency to lowest frequency. But that's a Pareto chart. It's pretty simple to make.